Have you ever stopped to think about adolescence? They're chaotic teenage years. We tend to assume it's just biological,
Yeah.
a phase everyone goes through. But what if that's not quite right? What if the whole idea of being a teenager is actually, well, a pretty recent social invention? Because our deep dive today, looking at the sources, suggests this whole period really only emerged about 150 years ago. That kind of challenges everything, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a core finding that jumps out from the history, the sociology we've looked at. And that's what we're doing today, using those fields plus psychology to sort of unpack this. Think of it as a shortcut to getting your head around this, honestly, pretty surprising idea.
Okay, let's set the scene then. Before, say, the mid-1800s, what did things look like? Our sources seem to say there wasn't really an adolescent.
That's right. You were basically a child, and then pretty suddenly you were an adult. There wasn't this middle ground we take for granted now.
Hard to picture that.
It is. The shift, the transition to being an adult, it happened right around puberty. And it wasn't vague. Historically, you had really clear markers. Initiation rites.
Like what?
Well, think maybe warrior trials for boys in some cultures, or specific marriage rituals for girls in others. These weren't just symbolic things. They meant you were instantly an adult with all the adult rights and, importantly, the duties, too. Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, her work in traditional Samoa is a great example. She found basically none of the angst and struggle we associate with Western teenagers, which really suggests these adolescent issues. Maybe they come more from our social setup, not just biology.
That's a big thought. So if it wasn't always like this, what happened? What actually changed to create this whole new adolescent category?
Okay, so the sources really point to the mid-19th century. Think Industrial Revolution, the rise of big cities. That's when things shift. It seems society, not nature, kind of created this new group. A sociologist, I.S. Khan, calls it a social demographic group, meaning adolescent became a legal label, a social one. Think child labor laws changing, schooling becoming mandatory for longer, different legal responsibilities. But it wasn't primarily defined by psychology or behavior, interestingly enough. And that creates this real tension, right? Your biology is getting you ready for adulthood, but society's basically saying, hold on, you're an adolescent now. It puts young people in a kind of holding pattern.
Okay, so this invention, this social construct, it sounds like it came with some real baggage. What are the consequences of this adolescent limbo for young people today?
Well, yeah, limbo is a good word. Or no man's land. You're caught, aren't you?
What?
Not really a kid anymore, but definitely not treated as a full adult either. And the research suggests society often holds young people back, even when they're biologically and maybe mentally quite ready for more.
And that causes friction.
Absolutely. It seems to spark a lot of the conflict, the problems we typically pin on this age group. And what's fascinating is, without clear official roles or recognition, sometimes teens form their own sort of wild groups, right? With their own rules, their own norms. It really underscores this idea that just treating adolescents like older children might be, well, a big mistake.
Right. So, okay, taking all this in, what does it mean for you listening to this? If you're a parent or an educator, anyone dealing with young people, are there solutions? What are the implications here?
The sources kind of point towards two broad societal paths, thinking big picture. One is a sort of back to basics idea. Revert to older ways, maybe. Treat individuals as adults once they hit puberty.
Wow, that would mean rewriting a lot of laws, changing a lot of norms.
Definitely. It's a huge shift. The other path is maybe build a teen tier, like formally create a distinct social status for adolescents, give them clearly defined rights, duties, rules, make it an official stage. That's also a massive societal change, of course.
Okay, those are big societal ideas. But what about right now? For you listening, maybe if you're a parent or guardian, are there practical things you can do based on this?
Yeah, I think the actionable advice that comes out of this perspective is pretty clear. It's about treating teens more like adults, fundamentally. So let them actually weigh in on family decisions, maybe even give them a real vote on things that affect them.
Interesting.
And assign them real responsibilities, not just token chores, but maybe a part-time job or significant household management tasks. But, and this is key, match those responsibilities with real rights and freedoms. For some, more structured environments like certain boarding schools or maybe even military academies are sometimes seen as providing that kind of clearer pathway set of expectations.
So when you boil it all down, the big takeaway seems to be adolescence, as we experience it, might not be this inevitable biological storm. It's deeply shaped, maybe even created by our society.
Exactly. And maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. what if we changed our lens? What if we started really seeing young people not as overgrown kids, but as adults in the making? How could that shift reshape their entire experience, their potential? It might mean fewer struggles, maybe a clearer, more supported path into real adulthood.
Something to think about.
Hefty.
Maybe reflect on your own experiences or what you see around you through that powerful new lens.